magbalik sa pisikal na pagsimba tuwing araw ng linggo.
Tumaob ang isang demotor na bangka sa dagat sa Rapu-Rapu, Albay.
Magbalik sa
Ayon sa
pisikal na
otoridad, nasira ang
pagsimba
makina ng bangka
tuwing araw ng linggo.
nanghampasin ng malaking alon habang naglalayag.
Sa kabutihang palad, ligtas ang 16 na sakay nito, kabilang ang isang sanggol na
Catholic Bishops Conference of the Philippines nanawagan sa mga debotong Katoliko na
Il Signore mi rende uno strumento della vostra pace.
Lord, make me an instrument of your peace.
Dove c'è odio, lascialo seminare l'amore.
Where there is hatred, let me sow love.
Dove ci è ferita,
There is injury,
dove ci è
where
dubbio,
there is doubt,
dove ci è disperazione,
where there is despair,
sperare, dove ci è nerezza,
there is darkness,
innarsi, dove ci è la tristezza,
Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek
to be consoled as to console.
to be understood as to understand.
Love as to love, as to love.
For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned.
It is in dying that we are born again.
It is in dying that we are born again.
It is in dying that we are born again
To eternal life, Signore, mi rende un strumento della vostra pace. Lord, make me, Signore, make me an instrument of your peace.
Good morning, dear teachers, and welcome back to our 3-day activity on our webinar workshop on science teaching. Just a few reminders before we start with this morning session. So today is a whole day. We have a whole day program. We have a session in the morning and another session in the afternoon. So just a few reminders po. First, may I request our dear participants to kindly edit their Zoom profile names. So we request that you please use your registered name as your Zoom profile. Yesterday po I announced in the orientation how to do this. Just click on the participants, your own profile, and click rename. So palitan po natin siya ng ating registered name. You may also add your SDO. So for this program, we are partnering with 3 divisions. We have the SDO of Digos City, SDO of Panabo City, and SDO of Davao Occidental, along with, of course, our individually registered teachers participating from various parts of the country. Another is, of course, our attendance link. This has been shared in the Zoom chat as well. So kindly accomplish that, dear teachers. And then our assessment tool. Yesterday po, I've had questions on the FB group page, comments that they cannot download the assessment tool, which is in a Word file. So if it will not download on your phones or tablets, try using po a laptop and save it there po. Sometimes there are glitches po, even if you have a Word app on your phone. If it's a different version, it won't download. So mas madali po if you will use a laptop to download the assessment tool, and then you can save it to your other device as well. Yesterday, I think this morning I already shared the Google Drive from Dr. Silva yesterday. She requested that I share the drive itself so that the links are all clickable. So, shinare ko po yun. I hope po you can access the drive that we shared on the FB group page. And finally po, membership is open only until 5 p.m. So, those who are interested to become members of i.LEAD, this is optional to all our participating teachers. You can access the link on our FB group page. So, nandun po yun. Okay. Our speaker for this morning is already on deck. Allow me to introduce our second session, our morning session for this Saturday. Our session is the virtual teaching of practical and hands-on science. So, virtual po because this used to be designed for online teaching, but our speaker, of course, will discuss how this can also be implemented in a face-to-face or traditional classroom setup. This session provides teacher participants an opportunity to learn strategies to inculcate further love for science by capitalizing on its value and application for solving real-life problems, explaining natural phenomenon, and demonstrating the use or application of scientific principles. This session also aims to make the most of virtually available resources available at home, and easily sourced materials to conduct DIY experiments in lieu of on-site laboratory activities. Our expected learning outcomes for this morning, first is to demonstrate and design the use of practical DIY and hands-on application of science concepts that may be used in lieu of laboratory-based experiments, or DIY po, madaling i-source yung mga materials, especially to replace materials or things that you need for experiment na medyo mahal or mahirap hanapin. Apply new pedagogy, ideas, and key strategies to innovate lessons and activities in science classes. Our assessment for this session, so session 2 po dapat yan, sorry. But in the assessment tool, it's session 2. Again, it's differentiated. So for proficient teachers, we have teachers 1, 2, 3. Okay. Identify science concepts that can be effectively demonstrated with home-based practical DIY experiments. So for the highly proficient teachers, these are the Master Teachers Up. Design a sample lesson with an accompanying activity that can be effectively delivered virtually or face-to-face. So those are our assessments for this particular session. And to help us achieve and respond to this assessment task all the way from South Korea, we have with us this morning Ma'am Michelle Albano, who has been teaching science for more than 20 years. Internationally, she has taught in Bandung, Indonesia, Taipei, Taiwan, and is now teaching chemistry at Seoul Foreign School in South Korea. She also serves as an assistant examiner for the International Baccalaureate Organization. Ms. Albano is an alumna of the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Dear teachers, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our speaker for this morning, Ma'am Michelle. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning.
Yeah.
I'll just share my screen.
Yes, go
Thank
ahead.
you so much for the introduction. Sorry, where's my screen?
Do we have a time difference there, in South Korea?
Yeah, 1 hour.
1
So
hour.
I have to make sure. I always, forget for some reasons. Hi.
Is it cold there now?
Just a little. Just a little. Maybe around 10 to 18, something like that. Yeah.
That's
Okay.
cold compared to the Philippines.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
go
it's
ahead. Sige, sige.
thank you. While we're waiting, I have a bit.ly here. Can I ask everyone, those who can join? I'm not sure like how many people or participant can actually go to the bit.ly, but I want to ask about your expectations. As mentioned, this is, as you can see from the title, it's called virtual teaching. So I'm not sure where we're at. I know we're all face to face right now, but I still want to ask. Okay, so please write your expectations so I can adjust while I am sharing. Okay. Again, welcome everyone. Good morning. As mentioned, I am Michelle Albano. I graduated from the University of the Philippines, majoring in chemistry and math a long time ago. So my student number is 92. I teach high school most of the time, but I have handled elementary students and middle school students from ages 6, okay, onwards during summer school. So I've taught chemistry. All my teaching careers, I always have chemistry because that's my major, but I've taught different sciences like physics, biology. General science is one of the longest, also second longest subject I've taught. So I've taught in different programs or using different programs. I've taught IB, IGCSE, AP program, our curriculum, American curriculum. So I've I have experience teaching all of those. So I've taught for 16 years in the Philippines. I've taught in Xavier School, San Juan. And a lot of the things that I've learned as a teacher, actually, I've learned from there. Okay, so I have good students who are like to inquire. Also, I have, some students who doesn't like science. So I have a mix of both, and it enabled me to experiment and learn as I go along. So I'm really grateful for Xavier School for teaching me and allowing me to grow as a teacher. I've started teaching internationally in 2013. So I've taught in Taiwan, as mentioned. I've taught in Bandung, Indonesia, Taiwan, and Korea. So it's a different ballgame, but I've realized students are the same mostly wherever you teach. And I feel like, again, the way I've taught in the Philippines is similar to the way I'm teaching wherever I am. So I usually use inquiry-based teaching, and that's what I will share with you today. And I just recently learned about modeling framework, and some of the examples I'll be giving you will be based on that. So if you have questions, please, you can put it in the chat. My chat box is open. If there are things you want clarified, okay, so you can put it there. I want to say that I am a teacher just like you. I'm not, I am in the classroom. I'm not an HOD. I'm just a bachelor degree person. And most of the things I'll be sharing with you is, again, my experience as a teacher. This is my 25th year of teaching, and I still am learning. Okay? A lot of the things that I'm doing in the classroom, I adjust every year. So I want to hear from you. So I just give you just a few minutes for those who can join. You'd see I like interaction. What was your favorite lab activity when you were a student? This is on the third page of the link I shared with you. I will share it with you again. This is after the expectation. The bit.ly. Okay, so if you cannot click the link, you can just type bit.ly/OCT. That's October 15, 2022. You may also use this when you're sharing with your students. This is free for a certain number of shares. So if you'd like to share your, for example, classroom page or a document where you put in all the things that you are sharing, you can use this, and you can just recycle it every time, change it, or change whatever's in that document every lesson or whatever, and you have the same bit.ly that they can go to. So my first question is, I want you to think, okay, whether you're joining us answering, but I want you to think, what was your favorite lab activity when you were a student? Okay, so for me, that was like 30 years ago. Okay, so I want you, yeah, if you, thank you for those who are sharing in the chat. So if you cannot do it in the Jamboard, you can do it in the chat. So I'm looking at both. Okay, so wow. And then my next question is, what is your favorite lab activity as a teacher? Okay, I realize, teachers and students will have different activities that they like to do. In chemistry, teachers like to teach organic chemistry. Well, internationally, most of the teachers I've talked with would like to teach organic chemistry, but students don't like it. Okay, so, a filter, I like that also. Okay, something here resonates with me. When I was a student, I was trying to find out, I'm trying to recall what was the experiment that we did in the classroom. I'm from Quezon City Science High School, so we have a lot of science classes. And we did several activities, but one of the activities that I remembered, I saw it in the Jamboard, is also soap making. Okay, so I guess those are dissecting frog your bio teachers right now, right? So I kind of enjoyed, not really enjoyed, but it what do you call that? I remember the soap making for a long period of time for some reasons that I don't know. Okay, because I think this is the first time that we really made something using fat of beef. The teacher asked us to bring the fat of beef, and then we made soap using that. So I was like, oh, it's just something like I really enjoyed, but it really stayed with me. Okay, so it really stayed with me for a long period of time until now. If you ask me to recall, that's the one that I will remember the most. Okay, and differentiating plants. I asked you to ask for one. Okay, so thank you so much for those who shared, and you can see those answers, everyone in the chat, or you can see those in the Jamboard. You can see those things. Okay, now what is one of the activity? This is not really an experiment because I want to share something that everyone can do. This is one of them. There are 3 experiments that I really, really, really love to do with the students. One is the atom box. If you're teaching chemistry, I think you can teach it in lower grades. Like, it's a box, it's sealed, and I ask students what's inside the box and what are the evidences that would prove that that's inside the box, and they have to draw it. So it elicits those skills of observation, and using your observation to conclude, make a model. Okay, so it's sealed. It's a normal, I tell them it's a normal school supplies. So it can be an eraser. Okay, so sometimes I put in paper clips. Sometimes I put in coins or balls or pen, okay, in the box. And I ask them to write what is there. And then they have different objects, and then they have to look at other people's model and do they agree or not. And they will not open the box. Okay, so they will not see what's inside, because my main point is we're talking about the atom and we don't know what's inside. Well, of course, now we know a certain part. We can slowly see inside the atom, but before, they really don't have any technology to look inside the atom. And that's what I want to drive at. I'm not driving about the right answer. I'm about the process. This is what scientists do. Things they don't see, they try to find out using different ways, different technologies, etc., etc. Okay, so this is teaching science, and I like that because we're not after the correct answer. We're after if everyone agrees with that, and if there's an evidence or several evidences that will prove that that answer or that model is sufficient. we're not saying it's correct, but it's sufficient at that point. And I feel that that's science. So that's one. And I'm sorry, I'm already sharing. Second one, I'm sorry, I'm a chemistry teacher, so my favorite ones are chemistry based. But I believe the atom one, you can do it in younger years, so in middle school and elementary. The second one is flame test. I use it in different ways and in different capacity. I just have popsicle sticks with chemicals dipped in, popsicle sticks dipped in water with chemicals, and then I burn them. Okay, so that's one of the activity that I ask students to do. So it's kind of safe. I make sure it's safe. I did the flame test with grade 6, I think, in our 6 years old. Okay, so I did it with, grade 6, 12 years old. I demonstrated with 6 years old because I don't want them to touch fire, but I've used it for elementary students. And again, your question will dictate the depth of your discussion. But that's one activity that I like because I can use it in any grade. And this one, I think you can also use it in different grades. My idea here is balance. And this shows like the 3 things I want to share with you later on. Like when we teach lab, there are 3 things that you always have to remember. One, what is your purpose? And the other one, what is your context? And the third, student's context. And third one will be materials. Okay, so I'll share with you more of that later. But this is, I call it Pokemon coalitions. I have this presentation of Pokemon balls, of Ash, Pikachu, which students like. Whatever age they are, they love Pokemon, right? They know Pokemon. So my purpose for this is for them to learn what equilibrium is. Okay, so what is equilibrium? At the end of the activity, we will come up with the K constant. We will come up with the definition of equilibrium. We will come up with characteristics during equilibrium. And this is something that I will not give to them, but they will get from the activity. So they're just transferring balls. If you have homeostasis or diffusion, you might want to, modify this a little. So they're transferring it, what they call that? They're transferring it simultaneously. I can share with you the paper that I used to describe this, just instruction paper. I got this from one of the workshop I had before, like 20 years ago, and I modified it so that it will be relevant to the student, because that workshop is similar to what we're doing right now. It's for teachers. And when we're doing it as a teacher, I'm like, what are we doing? So, but I found something that I can apply and use in my class. And this is one of my favorite activities now. I really, really like doing this. And these balls can be replaced by any materials that you want, depending on your lesson. So that's just introduction. I guess you've shared your expectation. A lot of you want this to be fun, but I like to say I'm not a fun teacher. I tell my students that, and I told them my idea of fun is not the same as your idea of fun. I like solving problems, and if you like that, then we can have fun. So I hope that I can answer things, in your expectation. I like looking at your expectations because at least I'm giving you something that you can, use, because if not, then my whole talk is pointless, right? So that's that. So I want us to have a growth mindset. Just like when I saw that activity, it might seem boring when we did it, but I got something that I can use. So I've attended several workshops, and for me, it's not a matter of, oh, I know that already, I will not go there. No, it's more of like, oh, it might be different from what I know, and I want to sit in different people's perspective, and I get something from that. So don't expect, just like students, don't expect that you will get a lot from me. But what I want you to think about is, what is it that I'm sharing that you can actually use and modify? And, you can change it. I believe in Filipino teachers because we are so creative. I believe it's, we're innovative and we can adjust. That adaptability that we have, use it in teaching. Okay. So hopefully as we share and learn together. So the things that you're putting in there, okay, can be used and see, oh, these are what other people are thinking. Maybe I can use that and work on that also. And also examine, ask questions. I like it when students ask questions. So please ask questions. I do not tell them that there's no stupid question, because there are stupid questions. Questions are not equal. Okay. But I like answering questions, whether it's stupid or not. Okay. So, you can ask questions. I'm not saying you're saying that, but you can ask any question. So don't feel that you, what do you call that? Yeah, don't feel threatened, intimidated, what other people think about your question. Just ask questions. Asking questions means you're engaged in what we're doing. And I appreciate that. Okay, so what are we going to do for today? This is my agenda. We will look at why are we doing lab, because I feel like purpose is really important. Every time we teach, purpose is important. That's why we have a curriculum. And most of the time, teachers would kind of get lost in the classroom. Oh, I like to do this activity because students have fun, or I had fun. But that's not the purpose. The purpose is learning, right? So our purpose is so that students will learn. So I want us to focus on that. And that is our anchor. Our anchor is the why we're doing these things. And we will look at challenges of doing labs. Well, that will be either virtually or face-to-face. I know that a lot of you are doing it face-to-face already. And then I'll show you some virtual labs or home labs and activities that I've done with my classroom and some modification that I did. And again, some of the things that I will be showing you, I did it with 6 years old middle school, elementary school students. So we'll start with why we do lab. I saw already some of you writing why we do lab. So for those who cannot go to the bit.ly, okay, so for those who cannot go to the bit.ly, you can put it in the chat. Okay, so the bit.ly is here. I'm sorry, I always copy paste just the one I showed you earlier. So why we do lab. Okay, so I'll just give you, if you cannot write, just think. Okay, so think of the answer. Why are we doing lab? Why are you doing lab? Why do you want to learn labs right now? Okay, so why do we do labs? Okay, 1 minute just to think. And then if you want to share your answer, you can share it in the Jamboard or you can share it in the chat. Okay, I do not know how many of you are using Jamboards, but I am sharing this with you so that, in case you can use it in class, you can use it when you're in the classroom, or you can use it if it's the same idea as we have a blackboard and you use your sticky notes to put it. So we like Jamboard in our school if we're virtual. If we're face-to-face, we do similar thing as the Jamboard. We have post-it notes, you have, the wall, you have the title there, and then they do things and put things in there. So the key thing is we always ask students to write things. Okay, so similar to what I'm asking you to do. A lot of you are saying, labs are engaging, okay? And of course, different little kids like to do labs, right? Manipulative. And then when they go to high school, they're like, oh, I don't want to do labs. So what are we doing wrong? So those are things that we need to think about. So this is some of the things why we do lab. We know, I saw it in what you shared. Okay, I saw it in what you shared there, that what we shared there, that we know why we're doing labs. I had a student come in, two of my students before came in this year. One of them, so a girl was studying dentistry, and she's like, "Oh, Mrs. Habano, I like doing labs in university because I'm not afraid to do these things. We did it before." Okay. And one of the student from Johns Hopkins, he is a mechanical engineering person. So he's taking that as a major. He said that among all his classmates, these are like top students, he's the only one who knows how to use a certain apparatus in the lab because we've used it in class. And he joined the research group, a research lab in his second year of, because it's COVID. So he joined it second year. He could have joined first year because he's very comfortable doing labs. Again, he kept on saying, "Oh, I appreciate the labs we're doing because I'm able to do a lot in university." So I feel like, yes, doing lab is good. So I that was a confirmation for me. That's why I like doing labs. I had a boss before that said, "You don't need to do lab. You just teach them what's the expected answer." I'm like, how can you teach chemistry without lab? So since I'm a stubborn person, I kept on doing labs. So if you cannot give me the materials that I need, I will have to modify things, right? Science is different from other subjects. Science is, something we deal with things around us. So the approach to teaching will be different. It's not just like me talking, you answering worksheet, like math or like writing things like in English. You have to give students opportunities for them to learn, to be exposed in various methods. Okay, so these are things that we can, students can learn when we do labs. So one is the skills, we know that, right? Now, when I say skills, it's not just manipulative skills. It's not just doing things, like, oh, you know this, how to do this, then you can follow instructions. Yes, that's part of it, but not that only. That's not the end. Okay, so skills, manipulative, yes, experimental skills, yes, okay, being meticulous and all of those, but other skills will be inquiry. Okay, inquiry skills, they would start asking questions. I feel like that's one of the skills that young kids, have lost, like right now. They cannot inquire by themselves. You have to give them everything. Investigative skills, okay, so trying to find out what will happen. That even communication skills, saying, expressing, communicating your findings or your results. So it's actually, I think, a misconception that scientists are not people person or something like that, because they need to communicate. They need to share whatever their findings because they need to get, investors and funds and sponsors, right? So those are part of the skills that student needs to learn. So it is not just doing things, but beyond that, those are the skills that they need to learn. Of course, as some of you have mentioned, some of them, have to learn concepts, and we can do it during lab. They can apply it, okay, and they can learn things in an engaging way. So, hypothesis, what would happen? Explain, predicting, like, for example, taxonomy, right? So you can do it in lab. You can talk about all those kingdoms, but if they see an organism, where would they put it, right? Because that gives you understanding of concept. If they do not understand that, then there's a problem with that, right? So we can use it so that they learn concepts. Also, this is, I think, my big key takeaway. Cognitive abilities are actually enhanced when we do labs. Now, when we say cognitive abilities, this will be critical thinking. I'll go back to that later on. Problem solving, application, as you mentioned, analysis. I'm sorry. I feel like when we have people or adults who are not thinking, I feel like, oh, science teachers, it's on us. Like, I tell that to my kids, like my sons. If you don't think, I feel like as your science teacher, I'm like a failure. Okay. Of course, I'm joking. Don't get that pressure, but that should be a challenge for us, right? We should provide opportunities for students to learn critical thinking. Don't just expect critical thinking to them. Teach them how to think critically. Teach them how to solve problems so that they'd be able to do that when they go out of school. It's not like, oh, I didn't learn that in school. Yeah, you didn't, but you learn how to solve problems. You learn how to do this. You learn how to do that. We don't need to teach students how to do tasks. It's enough they know. That's like extending your math. Okay, so I feel like that's the cognitive abilities that we need to touch on more. So of course, when we teach them or ask them to do labs, they would know that the nature of science is really, it's there's no absolute truth in science. We keep on learning. Science, when something is disproven, it's not wrong, but we have more technologies, and we don't put 100% saying, oh, this is an absolute truth. This is true now, okay? And we're trying to check if it will be true as we go along. Okay, so that's nature of science. It's experimental, and there are uncertainties happening in science. Technology affects your science greatly. Okay, because the more sophisticated our technology is, the greater discoveries we will have. Okay. And of course, the last one will be the attitudes. I have several students doing experiment and like, this is against what I know. And I said, don't change your answer because that's what you observe, right? And then we will try to find out why is it that what you observe is different from what we know. Okay, so those are part of the attitudes that we can have. So it has like collaboration. They talk amongst themselves and come up with the consensus. Okay, and this is where liking science actually would start. Okay, so the attitude of liking science. The more we do lab, the more we give them engaging labs, the more that they like science. And that's what we want, right? We want them to like science. We want them to show scientific literacy. Okay, scientific literacy. Okay, so if we do lab, it increases scientific literacy, and all of these that are here are actually contributes to scientific literacy. Okay, what does this all mean, and how can I find answers? So, whatever I'm sharing with you, I've got it from different sources, and I'll share the sources later on if you want to look at it. Okay, so one of the key cognitive abilities that I really like, and I push my students to do is this. Okay, so critical thinking usually can enhance it by asking questions about the data they collected or evidences and making informed decision based on evidence. So we don't just like, oh, students would know which is an opinion and which is a fact if they know how to do this. And the key thing is really making informed decisions on evidences, not just based on what we like, based on what we feel. Okay, so this includes, when we vote people, that includes that, that we look at different evidences instead of just relying on other things. Okay, so these skills are important, again, not only in science, but in real life, right? I think people would agree to that. Like, this is one of the key skills that we want students to really know. Okay, so if there's an end all to like your purpose, let this be the purpose, not the not the manipulative skills. Let this be the purpose when you do lab. Okay, so This is also was given by Holmes, okay? Natasha Holmes from the National Academy of Science. So I just got it from her because I really like that. So science is relevant because if people are not thinking critically, that's science. If people are not asking questions, people are not curious, then science becomes irrelevant because information are all around. I don't need to think. And that's what we need to inculcate to students. Science is relevant. Science is something that you can use in any aspects of your life. And we have to make sure that they understand that. Okay, so we have to make sure. And how do we do that? We do. Okay, so labs are originally designed for this. But the thing is, we usually give lab students that it's just like a performance checklist. Oh, you do this, you do that, etc. They don't need to use their brains. I think this is one of the downfall of the labs. Okay, so I am guilty of this, okay, because I am trained to do this. Okay, but this is not helping students. Giving them things, there are times that giving them things to do is helpful. But if we do it every time, then that defeats the purpose of the lab. Okay. Labs should increase problem solving. So giving them problem and then asking them how to solve the problem without giving do this, do that, do this, do that would be more engaging, more, there will be more skills involved, thinking skills, and even manipulative skills. Okay. So hands-on experience, whether it's a lab experience, whether it's an experiment or simple manipulatives, should be appropriately designed and guided. Okay. So two things that you should continually ask is, what is the purpose? Why are you doing this? And what is the context? Because if this is not clear, then you're just wasting your time. You can just discuss things and ask them to answer questions, right? So also, let us not be the teachers who kill science. Okay, so stop students from asking questions. Stop students from being scientists. We should be encouraging students to be scientists. Okay, so that's why I like doing some activities. I tell them, this is what scientists do. You feel it's very simple, right? Because it's in our context. But they do the same thing, but they just use those machines and apparatus, etc. Okay, so try to dilute not the concept, but the process of doing science in the level of your students. So without purpose, it's really hard to motivate students to do lab. Because for you, like you prepared a lot, you prepare those manipulatives, and then they are not getting the response you want from the students. Okay, so we want engaging labs also, right? I remember I did a lot, the Pokemon ones. I did it before first time I did it. I prepared a lot, I did this, and then my students are not buying it. I'm just like so frustrated. So I know I have to change things, right? So I know I have to do things. So I learned how to do science, and not science in terms of manipulating, but doing science, the whole scientific literacy. Okay, so that is what we want. So science is, investigative in nature. So we will be doing these skills as we do science. And it's really important that students master these skills and the concepts as we go along. So we want them to do science. We want them to be excited about science. So don't think just about experimenting. You see, these are all the things I'm listing here, and I want to reiterate this. These are all doing science. From asking questions to presenting data, they're all doing science. Do not just zero in the experimenting. That's just a small part of it, okay? You can give them data and they analyze it. That's doing science. That's a lab work. Okay, so that's also, hands-on. Okay, so those are the things that we can do. So I'm giving, this is one example, asking questions. I just gave an activity to my students, asking questions, and it drove them crazy. And like, how do I know? All those how do I know things. So I asked them to ask questions regarding periodicity, and I really, really focus on this, guided them how to do this, because if they cannot ask questions, that will be hard. Okay, and I think it's in the Jamboard. Again, if you have questions, you can ask. In the Jamboard, there's like asking questions. This is what I want you to do. Write a question with clear independent and dependent variable with this picture. You're familiar with that. That's why I chose this. You can use this same thing, activity, with any grade level. If you can't put it in the, if you cannot put it in the Jamboard, you can put it in the chat. I want you to write a question with clear independent and dependent variable. Okay, 1 minute to think and write. Do we still have people here? Okay, I want you to think clear and right. From elementary, I did this with my grade 6. Okay, so that's why I chose this, because this can be from grade 6 to high school, depending, of course, on the subject you're teaching. Okay, I see some questions in the chat and some questions in the Jamboard. Okay, again, this is something that, you can ask students to do instead of telling them what to do, right? But the question is important. Okay, so we want them to inquire, right? So most of the time, the question would just be, that's why I said, write a clear question with independent and dependent variable, right? So when we say what will happen to the Mentos, what will happen to the Coke when we put Mentos, what's our independent variable there? What is our dependent variable there? What are we observing? Okay, so I think that's the thing that we should start thinking about. When we say independent variable, it should be something that you change. So if I would just say Mentos is the independent variable, what do you mean by Mentos? Does that mean that I put Mentos, I put other candy, I put this candy? Is it the type of candy? So what is it that you want to investigate? Right? So asking questions requires thinking. Okay, so if we have that, okay, so remember, we're thinking about labs. Okay, we're thinking about lab. I like several of you give the same, questions. So what we want student to ask here would be, if I put different amount of Mentos, how high will the bubble formation be? I actually saw that in one of the chats or Jamboard. Mentos is not the independent variable. No, you have to make that clear to the students. Unless you have Mentos and different types of candy. So your independent variable is the different kinds of candy. So I do not accept my students saying Mentos. Tell them, I tell them, is it the amount of Mentos? What is it that you're changing? If you say Mentos only, it doesn't change what is it that you're manipulating, right? So I guide them here. So this is one of the first that you can give them. Like, I want to investigate what's happening or what will happen. So what is my independent variable? You can check their understanding of independent variable by doing this. And that's actually one of the skills that students need to learn from young to old, up to high school, right? If I crush the Mentos and whole Mentos, I'll put them separately. Will they have the same bubble formation? That is an independent variable. I'm changing something with the Mentos. So it's not the Mentos itself. It is either the quantity, the surface area of the Mentos. One of the students say, will it only work in Diet Coke? That's a Coke, right? So we had Coke Zero, Coke Diet, Coke regular, and we tried it. And those are good questions, especially for younger kids. For high school, we want them to be more quantitative, but for elementary, different types of Coke, would be sufficient. And we see what's inside, and then we can learn. I like what how would the bubble formation change if we use different amounts of Coke? What would happen if we change the temperature? So you see, my question, or the question I want to elicit from my student, is not just about what will happen when we put it there. Because if we put that there, then it ends thinking immediately when we put it, right? But if we make sure that there's an independent variable that we can change, and there's a dependent variable that they can observe, then they can investigate more. Oh, if I change it, if I do this, then what will happen, right? So they start asking questions. It's not just about what will happen. It's more of like, if I do this, then what will be the result? What if I do this? What will be the result? And that is what we want students to learn. Whatever activity you give them, they will start thinking, oh, I have two things, right? If I change this, what will happen to this? And that's what we want, okay? Just what do you call that? Picture. And you can elicit a lot of things. You can ask them to design experiment, and you can do the experiment. They can do this at home. Of course, it depends on the budget, right? So, but this can be doable at home, right? This can be doable at home. I put in here a link of a person who did it in different elevation. And what I want to share is that you can see it's kind of crude the way he did it. I will not share the whole thing, okay? But I will share with you how he measured it. Where's my video there? Can everyone see the video? I like talking. Please tell me if, okay.
Visible, Michelle.
Okay, thank you. You see, I'm just like, I want you can click the link later, but you see, he just using Coke bottle that has a gradation. Okay, so he was, yes, there. He kind of measured it, and he's looking at how high it is. This is like a person who's like to investigate things. But this is something students can do, right? This is something students can do. So I just saw his work when I was looking at Mentos. So this is something new I learned right now. I always have a problem with showing students how to quantify things, like their observations. And this is one example of quantifying things that's you can do wherever you are. So it's just using a bottle of Coke. Okay, so you can, again, look at that later. I shared it in the presentation. And where's that? It's here. Okay, so you can click that and see what he did. And maybe you can use it to modify it in your classroom. You can, something you can do. So that's it. No, I don't want to watch you. Wait. Okay. So the other one is designing experiment. This is something also that you can do. This is a lab. This can be hands-on. I know it doesn't sound hands-on, but if you want to put it into experiment, you can do so. So I asked, this is one of the things I asked my student. So most of my labs, I don't give them instructions. I give them questions or I give them prompts. That's how I call it, just like the picture I showed you. What are the things we can investigate? And then, depending on what I want my students to learn, then we move from there. So here, what are the things you need to know? What is available? Writing good methods. These are things that we need to know regarding labs. So I'll show you a lab activity that we did. This is shared with me. Okay, I'm teaching MYP grade 10. And this was mentioned by the team I had. So we showed this picture to the students. And the question is, oh, sorry, not that one. And the question is, what can you observe? What can you change? What can you measure? 3 things. What can you observe? So those are what can you see, right? What can you change? What can you measure? What can you change is your independent variable. What can you measure is your dependent variable. So from here, students are saying, oh, there's a string, a cup, and then, sticks of spaghetti. So maybe we can change the number of spaghetti sticks. So they started making experiments on that. So they have a question: how would the number of spaghetti sticks affect the number or amount of marble, or can be coins, that the cup can hold? This is something you can do also. This is a doable things we have at home if we eat spaghetti. Of course, they don't need a lot. They just need 5 at most, okay, so that we don't waste food. And they can use coins, or some people use rice, okay, so it depends on, they count the scoop of rice, because dependent variable has to be measured. So they change the sticks, they change thickness. We provide, like, my co-teacher went to a grocery store and looked for different thickness of spaghetti, pasta or noodles that looks the same. So those are things that they can change. If it's thicker, would it be changing, etc. And what else can we change? And then there are things that will not hit your lesson, right? Because we want here, you can talk about force, you can talk about torque here. Okay, so this is a spaghetti bridge, like very simple and very short. Students can do it. They can design and they can do it in the lab. So I'm sharing it with you. I just got it also. And we extend it to bridges, how we make bridges. What are the things we need to consider when making bridges? So do you have an application there? This, again, process is very simplistic, but the process of doing things is similar when we make bridges. These are things we need to consider: the strength, material, the force it can hold. Why do you have, maximum load? Because of this, right? So those are very relevant things that they see. So make sure when you do it, you find this is how it's done. So it can be like in my atom, it can be like what scientists are doing, or it can be like this, what engineers are doing. You have your careers there. You have things that is very relevant. Students can see. Okay, so why is it that we don't, violate those maximum load, etc.? Okay, so because it's really important. Okay, so I started, the discussion of this, showing them like a bridge collapsing here a few years ago, and they know that that's in their context. They heard about it. So making things relevant. This is relevant. Analyzing and concluding data is also an important part. You see, I try to veer away from experiments first, because these are all things that we can give them. Okay, so we can give them, like, what does this mean? So what if I have an evidence? It's not just like, oh, just writing a conclusion. What does it mean in our context? what do the outliers mean? Meaning we're not doing it correctly, right? You know, the COVID test, I explained to my son, why is it C and T, right? C and T. I tell my son, C is if you're doing it correctly, you know, you have your control there. And T is your sample being similar or not similar. That's science. And they see it in that RAT test. That's concluding. We analyze and we conclude based on the data, right? If you do not see the C there, it means your testing is wrong. So analyzing and concluding is important as your manipulative skills. Okay, so if not more important, because you can do things, but not analyzing and concluding is really, yeah, what's the purpose of the lab, right? So you can use this, you know, what's your answer, is the evidence, and what's the reason. And every time, if they get used to this, every time they argue, then it should be based on evidence, not just like saying, oh, that's what you think. You know, no, it's not what I think. It's based on the evidence, right? So that's one that actually push on critical thinking, your analysis and your conclusion. So we do labs. Okay, so again, if there are questions that I missed, so please, you can ask questions. Okay, so we do labs. As you've mentioned, I saw this because we want them to learn through the lab. We want them to apply what they've learned, supplement, and we want them to investigate and extend it into their setting. I think all of us wants to do that. So make sure that when you're doing labs, you are actually, again, what is your purpose? Okay, so please, 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 please make this clear. What is your purpose? Is this an inquiry? I usually do my lab as inquiry-based. So inquiry-based. And this is, if I do a supplement one, it would be an extension, not like just confirming what they've learned. Okay, so that's what I do. This is one example of a demo I gave. This is exploding can. One of the things I ask students to do, okay, because I want them to explain, I want them to conclude, I want them to ask questions. So all they do is just like, I ask them to make 3 columns, ask them to represent what's happening in the particle level. These are grade 10 science students. So this is general science. What is happening when it is burning? Okay. And what's happening when the flame is almost out? Okay, you cannot see the flame too much because it's too bright. So I usually close my window there. And then the last one is what will happen next. What's happening there? So what's happening? I asked them to explain because that's observation, right? And from there, I asked them to model. So what is happening and what do you think is, you know, how can you explain it? These are grade 10 students, doesn't know chemistry. It's not important, but I want them to try to figure out what's happening. So pushing students to think and learn. Okay, so that's one of the things that I expect them to do. This is also, that for me is an inquiry base. This is an application base. I asked grade 6 students, grade 7 students to do this. I asked them to make, this is a catapult. So we use barbecue sticks, popsicle sticks, and then the small cups, paper cups, and just paper for bullet. So I asked them to make one. So the instruction is in making one. So I asked them to do it, right? Now, as they do it, I ask them, why? What is it that I want them to learn? If I want them to learn about projectile, okay, without calculating, what are the factors that affect how far it will go? That goes your range, right? So there will be angle, force. They start experimenting. They start investigating. What are the things that will affect how far it will go, right? So you will have, again, your independent and dependent variable. And then we explain things, the science behind it after. Okay, so this is something that you can do. So I'm sharing, again, I just got it from the the internet, and I modify it so that I can use it to teach it to grade 6 and 7 students. We did it during summer camp, and I discussed, yes, I've taught them projectile, and we didn't go to the, kinematics of things, but they know what factors will affect, projectile. What is a projectile? Why is it that it's arcing? All of those concepts, we discuss it. Okay, so we discuss it, and they investigate using that activity. Okay, this is investigative. This is not something that I've taught the students. I asked them, science fair is like your investigatory project. So this student is looking for jammers. So he made his own jammer using the electric swatter. Yeah, I don't know how, of course, I've read how he did it, but was really thinking about it. So you'd see that he took the circuit board and he modified some things there so that it will be a jammer. Okay, it's the electric swatter. Okay, so, and what he is checking is the distance that it will affect something. Okay, so he is changing something in the jammer. So you see, and then he's calculating the distance that it will affect this light. Okay. So you're not seeing him measuring or changing some things here because he just said, oh, Mrs. Alban, it's working. So he's just showing this to me. And this student is one of the, he's not really interested in science in grade 9. But when we try different things in class, he's really mathematically gifted and he can do calculus in grade 9. So his science is so when he was in middle school. But he started, oh, I can do this thing. So his science fair is always top notch. Like, I will not, take credit for it because he did it on his own. He's really, really, really a good student. And he started investigating. And by doing these things, simple things that I do in the classroom, he started to apply it in his surrounding, in the objects that he's seeing. And I feel like that's science. That's what I want my student to do. Okay, so I hope that all my students will be like that, but no, of course, they would appreciate science if we ask them to do things they can see and find context in their surrounding. There's value in science because it's not just experimenting. What if I will not experiment, right? I'm not going to the lab. So why do I need to learn to do that? Choosing shampoo, use critical thinking if you know what's inside, right? Those simple things, they use thinking. And they see that, if they see these applications, then they would see or they will value science more. And that's what we want, right? So we know why we want to do labs. What are the challenges? So can you just post 1 minute, just so I stop talking for 1 minute? Think, what is it that hinders you from doing lab? What are the challenges? You can put it in the chat or in the Jamboard. What hinders you from doing lab activities in the classroom or virtually? Any will do, okay? Either in the classroom or virtually, okay? So, yes, you can put it in the chat or you can put it in the Jamboard. Okay, so. Yeah, I want you to vent right now. Yes, these are things we don't have. I want to do it, but, right? Most of you wrote this, right? Time. Who has time to do lab when we have to finish all of these things? And materials. Materials is a real one. I've taught in a school wherein they do not have lab materials. I bought my own beakers. I bought my own things. Okay, so please don't do that. Okay, your money is yours, not the school's. But I really want students to do it. So I understand where you're coming from. And one, I saw students' preparedness, okay, or motivation. Some of you wrote it, and I agree with you. Student motivation and preparedness is something that we can do. It requires training. It requires, the first time will be very hard. That's why most of the activity I do in the first time is either simple activities, but again, as I showed you, I asked them, I trained them how to ask questions. That's a very important thing for me. One, asking question is the first thing I asked them to do. And two, the exploding can, thinking, what would happen? What's happening? Those are two things I asked them to do. Okay, so before I give them a whole, just prompt and do activities by yourself and give me the answer, I ask them and train them to do those two important things. Okay, so I think the one that I will share with you first is the time. I can answer time. Okay, so I understand the time. I like inquiry. I like student doing things. So I think when we teach and then ask them to do lab, it's time consuming. But when I ask them to do hands-on activity, I tell them, this is your lesson. You should be learning what you can in this activity. Like in the Pokemon balls, okay? I touch in there again, as I've mentioned to you, they're able to, by that activity, give the definition of equilibrium. It's their definition. Give what are the characteristics, what is changing, what is constant during equilibrium. Constant. How do we calculate for constant? And it is constant whatever we do. Okay. Things that I teach for one period, I teach and do activity in one period. Same thing. So the activities that I choose would encompass a unit, not just an idea, not just a concept, but the whole unit. That's what I want them to do. Those are the hands-on activity that I want them to do. And there are things like choose an experiment. If you will put a period on an experiment, really not teaching anything, let it be an application or investigative. Okay, let it be application or investigative. The other things, you can incorporate your teaching there. Like even if you're just teaching about force, okay, I'll show you something. I've taught speed, velocity, and I'll show you how I use the activity to teach force and things, okay? So materials are really difficult, especially for teachers in the Philippines, right? I know when I was teaching in the Philippines, I like buying things. So I buy my things, I buy my materials. I have a popsicle sticks, barbecue sticks. Even now I have that also, like balloons, all of those things, that small washers. I have all of those in my labs, things that we see every day. So coins, the coins that we cannot use anymore, I have those in the lab because I might find things I can do, using those things. So first, I will show you virtual activities, so virtual labs. And some of this you can do in the classroom, okay? Some of this you can do in the classroom. And if you request materials, no, I'll go to the materials later. This is virtual, so this one doesn't cost anything. So what I will show you are free ones. Okay, so I got this idea during our COVID times, right? COVID is a really, 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 really difficult time, not just, of course, as a science teacher, but to everyone. So my school got me this. I hope you can see. This is Pivot Interactive. This is not free. So what it is doing is you can see their trial there. You can see the trial later on. They have all these numbers. They have someone doing an experiment and taking videos. I'm like, I can do this. I can take video and ask them to observe. Now, the questions will dictate how deep you want your students to go through the experiments. So I got the idea from this. So now I'm not using Pivot anymore. What I'm using is my own. So I'll show you what I'm using in class during COVID. And again, I use it after. Okay. So when I share things with you, please check, is this something you can do in your class? What can you modify? What can you get from this? Okay. So of course, the discussion and the question depends on the level you're teaching. Okay. So this is a YouTube. Okay. So be clear with your purpose. Again, be clear with your purpose. Some would say, oh, a picture will do. Okay, if you just want them to know the answer and conclude, a picture will do, because that will be considered a data, right? So if your why or if your purpose is just for them to analyze and conclude data, then pictures will be okay. Okay, so you can take pictures, you can send it virtually, or you can show it in your class and see what's happening. So you have their clear things. These are chemistry things. I'm sorry, I'm a chemistry teacher. Or you can use a video, right? So I will mute this, but this one went through an experiment and showing the experiment and the timer, etc., blah, blah. They can get that. And I do not, okay? I do not show this part. I do not show the data part. I cut it, okay? So, and I'll ask the students to do it, okay? So, if I know we're doing face-to-face already, so you can do this in the class. If you cannot do, you don't have an experiment, you're still watching it. In Johns Hopkins, they do this during COVID time. So even university schools are doing these kinds of things if they don't have the materials, right? So students can still be familiar with the materials we're using. They can still see, how it should be done properly, okay? Next, okay, this is make my own. Again, this is during COVID. Again, I made this because we're virtual before, right? So I'm just showing this to you. I am now I did this in my class now. In class, they're able to do this in different temperatures. So I want them to show what's happening. That's hot water and cold water. And you can do this in younger kids, right? Diffusion, faster thermal energy. You can do this in physics. We're talking about thermal energy particles. You can do this in chemistry. So, or you can do it in environmental science. You're talking about hot water and cold water, why global warming is a problem. Okay, so that is something. And then I asked them to, because again, this is chemistry point of view, I asked them to draw. The key thing for me is eliciting student response. I asked them to draw what's happening in the two things that I showed them. Okay, and here, the one here is virtual. Okay, so the one in the paper is virtual, and this one is what we did face-to-face. And from here, I elicit, the lesson that I'm trying to find out here is just like thermal energy, right? Thermal energy, faster movement. So this is quick, not fast, not whole period. I don't, I seldom do whole period lab. So this is just like 10, 15 minutes activity. Okay, that even the discussion. So I want them to communicate what it is that they are doing in class. So I do this both virtually and in the classroom. This is teaching velocity, speed, distance, and all of those things. So this is my determine the relationship. Okay, so this is my prompt. And I gave them video, unable to play. Sorry. So I'll show you the video. This is the video. This is available in YouTube. So, oh, it's not moving. There. Sorry. Again. There. So they can determine the starting position. So I want them to, get the starting position. Be like, are they looking at the red? Are they looking at the front? So they have to be consistent. What's the time? Okay. So that video. Now I did use a video. I used video in class. I used YouTube when we're virtual. And I also use toy cars to do it. Like in the classroom, I asked them, I brought some toy cars. Oh, it's not moving anymore. Wait. Okay. I brought toy cars and I asked students to measure using cars, that those battery operated cars, and they just move in constant motion. So I asked them to do that. So it's a normal toy that they're using. So I just borrowed from people here, like, oh, do you have a kid and do you have this toy? Can I borrow for a day for an experiment? So yeah, I asked people from school to give and bring one for me. So we have that, and this is the data that they got. Sorry. It's all trying to play that. Oh. I'm clicking the wrong thing. Okay. So this is what they have. So using YouTube and Slide, so they share their data in the class. So I'm teaching uncertainty, I'm teaching conclusion, what are the things. And from here, we can get the slope is actually your speed. Okay, so some of them are correct, some of them are not correct. I'm okay with that because this is part of learning. Okay, so and after this, I just summarize my summary. My lesson is just 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes of discussing. Okay, so there are questions that will come up as we discuss. So I asked them to present this very short 2-minute presentation. What are the key things that they got from the activity? Okay, so I'm teaching them how to graph. So this is a lesson that teach them how to graph. What are the information we can get from the graph? Okay, so how do we analyze? How do we conclude? And like saying as distance increases, constant increase. Oh, I don't know this one. I said it's not clear. Okay, so I want them to make sure that their conclusion would say whether, position and time are related linearly. So linear, proportion, all those things. So those came out in our discussion. That's my lesson. My lesson is about graphing. Okay, so, and while I'm graphing, I'm teaching them speed. Okay, so that's a lot of concepts there. So the time that can be addressed by incorporating a lot of things in that activity. And you can always go back to that activity when you discuss. I do that. That's my hook. That's my anchor activity. So every time I discuss, I go to that. Yes, I do lab first. I am an inquiry-based teacher. So I ask them without anything, I ask them, what can you learn from this? And then I give my discussion, just a summary, 10 to 15 minutes, like, discussion from me based on what we've talked about. So I'm an inquiry-based teacher. So of course, it's not always. Okay, I just want to say inquiry-based doesn't mean every day you're doing inquiry. No, I have that one big inquiry at the start of a unit, and then we move forward. So that lesson there is about motion. So that's my starting point there. And all the motion we're talking about, whether it's gas laws or motion of objects, we always go back to that. We know now that a slope of a line will give me something. And what is that something? Okay, so before I give them the theory, yes. Oh, sorry. This is an example. This is bio. So I put the link there. This will be shared with you later. So where's my bio? This is Edpuzzle. This is free. Okay, I love Edpuzzle. Okay, Edpuzzle is free, but it's limited. You can just delete This is a lab. So I will, okay. This is a biolab. Sorry, I'll mute it.
In an earlier lab, we examine the stages in the development.
Okay, so this is a lab. So it depends on what you want students to learn or do. And this is, I really like it. I use it not only in lab, but in lessons that I want students to watch. Okay,
Daughter cell.
so, sorry.
Each daughter cell is a
So there's a discussion here, but you can cut it and just show the experiment side. You can put in questions there. Yeah. What do you see, or etc. Okay, we can skip because we are teachers, but students cannot skip. They have to finish everything. They cannot do what I'm doing right now. Okay, so student cannot skip. Student cannot, move this. No, they have to watch everything. So this is a lab that I shared before. If you cannot do this whole staining and microscope thing, this is available. This is free. You can check this. Okay, biology teachers, there's a lot. Okay, so, and there's like, you're looking what's inside, they're showing you what's inside, and there are questions. You can change the questions, right? You can change the questions. So how many can you see? Which one is it? Okay, so you can ask students those questions, and they tell you the answers immediately, but students cannot check the answer later on. Okay, so then that question, and it's easy to check because some are checked and some you can check later on. I love Edpuzzle. I love Edpuzzle. Okay. Some of my lessons I just give through Edpuzzle. So we just do discussion. And you can have 2 minutes, okay, 2 minutes of this in the class. We are one of the top 10 TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook user people. So these are things that I feel is doable in class. Okay, so if you want to do this, again, this is available in YouTube. So just take note of that. That's why I use it as a learning experience. So even if they get the answer from YouTube, they still have to know what it is, right? So you can do it in class, then they don't have access to YouTube. So it depends. This is biology. They have a lot. So I advise you to look at Edpuzzle, what's available in Edpuzzle, and you can, there's a lot. It's free. It's free. That's the best thing about Edpuzzle. It's, it's free. I really love it. Next, this is also free, and Edpuzzle has limited access, but this one is free, and you can actually donate, but you don't need to. Okay, this FET is for all sciences. I think they might have some math also. They have great teacher support. They have activity sheet ready. You just have to give your email. Okay, so you just have to give email to them. So again, some of you might be using FET already. This is FET. Okay, I'm sharing it with you. Again, the link is there, but you can just check it. So there's HTML. They've already upgraded this because before they have Java only, and it's really difficult. So you'd see there's there's math, like there's physics, a lot of physics. I think the people who made this are physics teachers. Okay, so they have biology. It might be limited for other subjects, but you have these things here. Okay, so I have gas laws being, I want to put, they have diffusion. Where's my gas law? Gas property. Okay, gas intro. Okay, so it depends. Just tell the student, if they do this, it take time to load. Okay, so 5 minutes to load. Just be patient. Okay, so they have this. So they have sample goals available to you. They have teaching resources. You'd see sign in for content. Okay, and then you'd see here, and you have activities ready for you. You have activities there for grade levels. Okay, middle school. Oh, are you seeing what I'm sharing? Oh, wait, I might be talking and then I'm sorry. I thought I've shared. Where's my pen?
It's still the slide. Mission.
Sorry,
Oh, yeah,
sorry.
there it is. There it is.
There. You would see this. Okay, so they will give you sample learning goals. They will have teaching resources and activities. Okay, so they have all subjects. Okay, so I'm going to earth science. Oh, the things that you can do. Greenhouse effect. Okay, so color, hot, physics, pressure. Okay, so those things. I will look in gas intro, and these activities, again, they are downloadable. They have the level there, and you can change it. Okay, I changed mine. I combined things, but please make sure just credit it to the people who use it. So I don't remove, like, modified from. I place it there, and when I give the paper to the students, they know it's not from me. So when you click it, they would say, you can download it, but I have to send email. So I just click, and I get it. Okay, so I will get passwords. Okay, so you see they have objectives and things written there. Okay, so what's expected? Some of these will walk through students about the simulation, so you don't need to say anything. Some are simple ones. Okay, so I forgot which is the one I used, but yeah, so I show you the simulation. This is an intro. So my first thing is that what will happen when we put in here, right? So this is a heavy particle. You'll see the pressure. Okay, so of course, I give them instruction for this because that's what I want. Well, the first thing is, like, just explore what you have. And then I give them instruction on what to do or questions. So you have 50, you will have a certain pressure if it's a heavy particle. And then if you change it to, light particle, will the pressure be the same? And they will say, oh, the pressure is the same. Just this last meeting with my grade 10, because this is my lesson in grade 10, I asked them to hold something constant. So it's either volume or temperature and pressure. And then I asked them to collect data. So each of them are doing different experiments. So 3 people doing different experiment, the laws that I want them to do, 4, including Avogadro's. So 1, 2, 3, 4, each of them doing different activities. And then they draw the data, they draw the graph, and then conclude. After that, they share. That's my lesson in gas laws. So all I need to do is just to explain, just summarize, make sure that they got this relationship. So it's usually a long lesson, but the students will do it for around 10 to 15 minutes. They share for around 5 minutes. Now I have time to summarize and tell them these are things you need to remember, okay, for 10 to 15 minutes. And then the next is just if I want to go to problem solving or answering questions. Okay, so that will help, right? So 3 laws, 4 laws in one meeting. Okay, so that will lessen. So you can have activities, different students or different groups are doing different things, and then they share. The key thing is that you share the data, because they're all learning, right? So we're all learning the same thing, so we can just share discussion, and that help them learn more about collaboration and things like that. So I like FET. I love FET. So the YouTube, very rich in a lot of experiments, especially now, after COVID, a lot are just in the YouTube. You can use it. I think FET is also, FET and EdPass, all of those are free. Okay, of course, you use the internet, right? But some you can download. If not, you can make your own video, right? So you can use anything, Google Forms, slides to do this. This is an experiment that I did in the classroom. This is an experiment I cannot do ever, because it's about energy. So I asked students, they have the email there, they have the names of the people doing the experiment. and then explore. These are the information you can get from this. This is FET. So they have the link, okay? Then click on custom interaction. What size are the arrows? So you see the questions. This is the lesson. And this lesson, if I would just talk about it, yeah, they cannot picture it, right? They cannot see it. So my lesson and the labs, you know, go hand in hand. And this will be submitted to me. And again, at the end of it, I would just summarize. Sometimes I summarize, or sometimes I just get the implication. So knowing these things, what does that mean? And that's what I would discuss. So I use Google Slide documents and form to collect answers. Okay, and I use FET, Edpuzzle, and YouTube for them to do the labs or do the lab in the class themselves. Okay, so I use Jamboard. So see, this is also available online. This is something you can do. I asked them, this is acid basis or solutions. So I asked them, how will they group it? And what are the things that they need to do in order to group it better? Okay, so, and then I provided, some said, oh, I need a pH, okay, or I need to burn it, or I need some metals to react with it. I give it that, and then they start investigating and grouping it. Okay, so I have here virtual labs you can check. Okay, so I've checked them, and they're available the last time I checked it. So these are all virtual labs, and you can check it. They're free. Yeah, most of them are free, if not all. Okay, so some will need your email. That's the only thing that they're asking. Okay, so again, this will be shared with you later on. Okay, now some home labs. Oh, I don't know. I asked how long. Oh, I'm over. I'm sorry. No, see, that's my time. I have 30 minutes, right? Okay. This are home investigation, can be done in any grade, and you'd see they're using strainer or basket that we can have at home, right? Yes, these are all modified things. You see bowls there. They're checking what materials will melt ice most or least. So they're using sugar, they're using salt, they're using starch, they're using flour. And what they're doing is they put same amount of ice, okay, here, and then they pour in things, and then they collect the water that comes out after a certain period of time. Okay, and this one, they put it two different things, checking different things. This is, I think, amount of salt. Okay, but same idea. And this is like in a bowl. Okay, and then later on, he collected the water. Same thing that is there. So again, I asked them to make sure that when they observe things, they have it quantitatively. Okay, of course, in younger kids, it can be qualitative depending on, you know, your classroom. Okay, depending on the age, or make sure it's age appropriate. But what I want you to see here, these are all things that you can have at home, you can have somewhere else in the building, in your high school. Okay, so bowls, and of course measuring things. So just something to measure. Okay, so it can be a ruler, cup, just get that height. If it's not volume, then that's the height, as long as something is, you know, something you can numerically graph, okay, or say that this is this. Okay, so these are things that you can do. This can extend to you I don't know, amount of salt that you can use to melt ice, or type, or other things that you want to do. Okay, but this is something that they can investigate. Okay, this is Apple. Okay, so they're checking different substances and how, you know, effects of solution. So this is different acids. Okay, so this is a little bit more sophisticated. The student used HCl and using the oxidation of apple. Okay, so the browning effect of apple. So again, this can be high or low. And this one used tea, Coke, and coffee. Okay, looking at what's in them or the acidity of those things. Okay, so the assumption of the student here is they have different acidity. So you can have your limitation. How does it work? What's the problem here? There's a lot of independent variables going on. And those can be part of the report that they're doing, the limitations of the experiment that they're doing. Okay, so again, report is important. Okay, writing and saying what they find out and how reliable the results are part of the learning process. Okay, this is a student doing something with electricity. So he bought things by himself. This is like electromagnet, right? You can do that. You have done that. I know, physics teacher, this is one of the activities that you have done. Okay, so materials you can do. Investigative, again, I didn't teach. This is not a lesson that we learned that time. Okay, so they are investigating things. This is a drawing bot. When my son is in grade 3, this is his science fair. So I did not do anything. I just provide the materials. So he has a motor, and he made all of this, and this like moves. Okay, so he changes the motor fan, and that's his independent variable. And then his dependent variable is how far, like the movement speed of the bot. Okay, so this is grade 3. Okay, so investigative, yeah, it's investigative. So he's just using pen, Pringles can. Of course, the motor is something that I have to buy, and the battery. Okay, so if you have that in school, then that's okay. You can have. I'm not sure if you can request it. Okay, so this is just alcohol, normal alcohol. If you have alcohol, ethyl alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, and plants. I know teachers are doing this a lot of times. I use onions. I use different things, normal acid-based things. You can use this in other things also. So, okay, so this is a very simple one that I asked grade
Also, video
4, 3. Okay, younger kids. This is a projectile. You saw my projectile earlier, right? This is another projectile. So I'm just using rubber band and a clipboard. Any board will do, or a notebook will do. So you just have rubber band and a lined paper, normal paper. The lined paper is just so they would know how far they will pull this thing. And that's a projectile, sorry. So they're changing the force, or how far they're pulling it, and see how far it goes. Little kids can do that. Materials are very simple, right? Yes, you can do it even in high school. Okay, so the question is the one that dictates whether we can do it in elementary or in high school. So we don't need projectile launcher. This is your launcher already. Okay, so the question would be the one that would matter. Okay, and this is planes, airplanes, straw airplanes. I asked also, this is for middle school and elementary kids. I asked them to do some of them. I got this online, and I asked them to change some things, the length, how heavy it is. So that's why it's different. Okay, and then they blow it, and then it goes. It's again projectile. So during that week, we're just looking at projectile motion. And these are things that students, again, middle school students can do. So I like doing things with them. These are different antacids. Okay, the one on the left, and yeah, so students have to buy that. This is condensation using just a jar and balloon. And this is, I think, bio-based, the jelly enzymes. Okay, so looking at enzymes. So you see the materials are all household materials, right? So this is something that you can do. Colors, just cellophane, looking at different colors. And tie-dye. I made tie-dyes with 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old. So tie-dye patterns, I'm talking about adsorption, the idea of absorbing and not going in. Okay, that big particle, small particle size matter. Our mask what's the difference between a 94, I don't know what it's called there, 95 mask and the other mask. Why is it that we're using this kind of mask and not this kind of mask? That's your absorption, particle size, and all of those things. Okay, so you can do that in elementary. Okay, this is slime. Slime is one of my favorite activity. This can be done in elementary to high school. You just need glue, okay, and borax, which you can buy in, I don't know where to buy it in the Philippines, but I know in Taiwan, I bought it in a hardware store. So, yeah. So these are things that you can do in the class. Now, I have a very, I have sensors in my classroom right now. My school is very sophisticated in terms of lab, but I still do labs using normal activities, sorry, normal materials that, cups, even small tansan. I miss tansan, the bottle caps, because I don't know how to find it here. And I feel like that can be used in different ways. I can burn things there. I can put things there. So I'm trying to find that here. Yeah, I have several things in my classroom that's like that. So this is about it. Do you have a popsicle stick? Yes. Rubber bands? Yes. All those things, I have it in my classroom. Okay, so, and I tell them, please make sure when you're done, keep it back because it's mine. It's expensive to buy a lot of things, right? So don't buy a lot. Okay, so things that you can ask the school to buy, make sure it's like things that you can, cheap. It doesn't have to be sensors, because it's nice to have sensors, but, or, sophisticated things, but that's doesn't affect science. Okay, so maybe accuracy will be affected, but learning will not be affected. Okay, so I still love doing hands-on activity. All the things you've seen, yeah, those are things I'm doing in lab. So we want students to explore and out their thought process. These are things that we want students to do when they do lab, not following instruction. Of course, we want them to follow instructions. But if that's the only reason why you're doing lab, they can follow instructions in different ways. So when we do labs, exploration is one of our purpose, investigation. But when they investigate, make sure that they voice out, they communicate their thought process. What were they thinking when they, do these things? Okay, what is it that they want to check? Okay, so I had, as I've told you, I asked my student to ask questions, and I told them, why do you think, why did you choose these substances? What is common to them? Why can you say that they will have the same effect or similar effect? So questioning, asking them, what are they thinking? That's science. And that's hopefully one of the things that you would, that's learning. Okay, so that will lead you to the concept that you want them to learn, so that your lab is not just a waste of time. Okay, so we want them to troubleshoot. If it doesn't work, what will work, and explain. I'm doing an investigative experiment right now with my grade 12, and one of the students said, yeah, Mrs. Albana, it keeps on popping out. And I said, you have too much of something. And he's like, okay, he changed concentration. I'm like, no, that's not it. So he started doing things until, now he can observe things. He changed his catalyst, the amount of catalyst, and different things. It's investigative. So it's not something like time oriented. They have to find time themselves. That's one of the things that they have to do. So they get engaged with the experiment when they do that. So you want them to engage in learning. You learn as you do, not following instruction, but you learn as you do the things. So the more thinking that is put into what they're doing, the more engaged they would be. Okay, so it's not about, again, just getting the right answers. No, it's trying to find out what is happening. That's more important. Okay, so that's our purpose. So start with your purpose. Purpose will always be first. Purpose will always be first. If you just want them to to see it, why do it, right? Like there's demonstration. But if you want them to learn what's really happening, okay? So I have one in our lesson, in our team meeting, one of the teachers said, oh, this is a demo that we can do in class. But I'm like, oh, there's value in asking students to do it. So it's the different solubility of alcohol, water, sugar, salt. So I asked them to do different things. So because I want them to see solubility is not always, oh, this is soluble, this is not soluble. There's partially soluble. There's like things that will affect solubility, and it has something to do with bonding. So I want to elicit that. So I want them to do it and see it for themselves. And I haven't started any question or any lesson. Okay, so just asking question. Because when they start asking questions, they'll be receptive to whatever you're explaining to them because they want to find the answer, right? But if you tell them bonding, this is soluble, this is not soluble. Okay, let's see it in water. What's the purpose? Just for them to see? I just show it, right? So that's a waste of time because students are not fast, or they don't maximize their time on doing the experiment. So your purpose will eliminate the wastage of time, okay? So please make sure that your purpose is clear. Consider your student's context. Again, what is it that your student know how to use? You do not expect them to know how to use or do things immediately. You train them, okay? So I have really cool sensors in my classroom. I don't know how to use them. So how can I expect my students to know how to use them? So I have to teach them along the way how to use it, okay? So know that. And relevance is dependent on the student's perspective. So it can be relevant to the students themselves or relevant to the environment, to the society, or to the world, okay? I have one investigative that students did, banana and oxidative property. The student look at the ripeness of banana and see if the oxidative activity happens faster or slower when it's ripe or unripe. And this is again in the context of the student. My question to her is like, how will you quantify ripeness? When we say something is ripe, what is it that tells us it is ripe? Color, right? So that's one of the things I said, okay, color, but how can you quantify it? Like make it a number. Oh, if it's ripe, it's sweeter. And she's a biology student. So she's like, I can check for glucose. That's her independent now. Glucose. And then dependent is the oxidative property. This is a grade 12 student, so it's a little bit high. But what I want to show you is that, again, this is in the context of the student. In the convenience store here, they sell banana in different colors. Green, light green, almost yellow, and then the yellow ones. So that you can eat it like once a day. They don't ripe at the same time. So she used that color and then make it quantitative, getting glucose, and then relating it. It was really, really, really a good investigation. And I will not think. I ask questions because that's, again, our job, right? But that's her context. Her context is she eats banana. And why is it that they're selling banana in different colors? So, and she thinks that, or based on her research, bananas have oxidative properties. So she's linking all of these things, her context, and what we're doing in class. And that's what we want to do, right? That's what we want to do, that at the end of it all, they can apply what they've learned in class in their own life, okay? They may not solve problems, very, very seldom we will have people doing really science as a career. But all the things we're doing in class that's science related is applicable in cooking. Why gasoline? Why do you have to, it's wise to put to load fuel at a certain time of the day. Okay, so those are all science wise, right? So application will start from us, right? So, and they will not listen to our application if we just say it. We have to engage them in those applications. So I think the next stop, that I'm sorry, I keep on talking a lot. The next is owning it. Okay, you own it. What is it that you can modify or you can do? Maybe not in terms of making it virtual or not making it homemade, but instead of it as an afterthought, oh, we just need to do lab, make it a central part of your learning classroom, and then get things from there. Okay, so anchor your things from there. I had a lesson on moles, Avogadro's number, right? It's so hard to teach Avogadro's number, stoichiometry, and all of those things. So I have two anchor activities. One is measuring things and finding relative mass. So I asked them to measure 30 pieces of different things. You need a balance for that, right? So because again, mole is something about masses. So I asked one to use coins, one paper clips, popsicle sticks, and we derive what it means when we say relative mass. Now, something that's abstract, they can see it. They've done it. Understanding is deeper. Okay. And when I thought about stoichiometry, I asked them to make s'mores, marshmallow, graham crackers, chocolate, and then we mass it. Okay. So of course, the things that touches your laboratory, don't ask them to eat it. So I make sure that it's safe, okay, at a certain time. So we either mass it or we count the particles or we count how much it is. And then I relate that to stoichiometry. So every time I say something, I tell them, remember the activity we did? Remember this, remember this, remember that. So I start with an activity, hands-on, experiment, whatever it is, I start and I anchor all my activities there. I want to make sure that what I ask them to do counts to learning. So I tell them, you have to learn. Okay, you have to learn. There are times wherein, I'm sorry, this is the last one. I'm talking about energetics, energy, getting energy. So one group of students are doing calorimetry with combustion, burning alcohols. Other group of students adding acids and base. Other group of students are dissolving salt in water. And our main purpose is to know the energy in whatever they have. 3 experiments, right? 3 experiments. And then they share. And I told them, your classmate did not do your experiment. So make sure when you present it, it's clear, because I'll be asking questions about the experiment in the exam. So that's like putting accountability to them also. Okay, so 3 experiments, data, one big concept of QMC delta T. And they know it. Okay, so they experience it. They see errors. They see, oh, there are soot in there. So it will affect your results. So different, again, like in the Mentos, one can do this, temperature, one can do this, one can do this, and they have now the factors affecting a reaction, right? So depending on the level that you want them to do, projectile, I love projectile for younger kids, don't need to calculate things. They can do that in high school. Okay, so, but they can learn about speed, velocity, kinematics, concepts using these activities. I feel physics is very kid friendly. Okay, so of course, calculations are not, but a lot of the things that they're doing, concepts, they can learn it at a younger age using these activities. Okay, so I think this is also your assessment that you're asked to do. So think maybe in that aspect, if not, doing lab DIY, then you can like refocus your lab so that you get a lot more from it. Okay, so I hope I've touched most of the challenges you're facing, and I offered alternative or a little bit of solution to some things. If you have any questions, you can ask along the way. You can send me email. No, you can send questions here. Okay, so as you do your thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Michelle. Wait lang ha. Let's see if we have questions from our teachers. Teachers, it's time for our short open forum. So if you have questions, you can use the raise hand icon or the chat box. And as Ma'am Michelle said, we're going to post her presentation in the FB group. And I think she also put in her contact information in case you want to ask her anything, no, something related to our discussion this morning. Any? Oh, there's a question.
No,
we need to pay?
FET is free. You just need to give your email to FET in itself. The simulations, they are free. If you want the activities, you just give them your email. You don't need to pay anything.
So you just register with them. Is that what you
Yes,
do?
you just need to register.
Okay. So registration lang daw po. It's free. So is it user friendly? Like if you're not like a techie person, can you easily follow the instructions, download?
My suggestion is when you first use it, you yourself try to click whatever you can click. But the papers, like the activities, the teachers, like they try to say, move the slider, click this, you can follow it before you give it to the student so that you can learn it. It's very, you don't need to do anything, just the simulation.
But if I'm doing face-to-face, for example, in a remote school, no internet access, I can print and download and print and give it to my students. Is it does it have a feature like that?
The download, they have, if you have Java, if you have Java, you can download it and then it's available. That's what I have before. Just don't use the HTML version. So this can be done by group. Like you have, I don't know, if you have a computer lab in school, then they can have that. So you can ask if there's a tech person to download it.
Oo, no, pwedeng ganun, no? Like if they want to download and print na lang for their students to be distributed, like if they don't have internet access in the school, they can do that. So ayun, konting effort lang siguro if you can't download it yourself. Let's ask help from the tech people in our school para naman we can reap the benefits of technology, especially if it's not available to students. Some students kasi also have a difficult time accessing pag online yung resources. They're just using their phones and sometimes their phones can't access these resources. So, pwede. But other than that, ang ganda ng mga dinemonstrate mo that you can do really with materials that you can find in your home. My favorite is always the spaghetti thing. Coke and Mentos, of course. It's very easy kasi yung mga materials na yon nandun na. What else kaya can we advise to our teachers when thinking of simple but very useful experiments that their students can do as your maybe final advice to them?
I always look at the things that you usually throw. So instead, I have a lot of Coke cans in my room. I like drinking Coke. Well, I stopped, but I like drinking Coke. So I have a box of Coke cans in my school. So my lab tech here is like, do I need to throw this? No, I said, don't throw it. So those things, plastics, even like simple things, you might not see the need right now, but later on, I can use this. Like cans are really easy, like for boiling, etc. Right? So things that you think you don't need. Okay, so try to just collect it. I have a series of towel. The toilet paper core, like that. I have a series of those just in case I need it, because I can use it in different things. I can roll it. Think of it as a wheel, moves. Okay, so those things.
There are some questions yata in the chat box. Do you have some compilation of videos on how to manipulate lab equipment?
I'm not sure what lab equipment you have, but I have some. Usually I check YouTube. Okay, so YouTube is my go-to. I seldom do lab techniques. I'm a chemistry teacher, so I don't do lab techniques in the classroom. I tell them to watch a video and tell them I expect these things from you. So that's one. So I do not like spend time telling them this is how to burn things, this is how to do this. This is the only thing I've taught them is how to open a Bunsen burner or turn it on, and which is the hot part, which is the cold part. That's it. But the rest, filtration and all the things we do in the lab, I ask them to watch a video. Usually universities will have that. So depending on, I'm not sure what you have, so I cannot answer. Yeah.
Another question, sample lesson plan.
Okay, so because my lesson plan right now is in a, what do you call that? It's a managed back thing of the school. I'll try to unearth my old lesson plans and share it with you. I'm not sure what grade you're in because most of my lesson plan are grades 11 and 12.
So maybe something from that,
Yeah.
grade level, just to see how it's done maybe in
Yeah, I can show
international
you.
schools. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have other questions or requests from the participants? I think that talagang we share that biggest challenge in doing lab is the time that you need to spend for labs, especially if it's a big class and you want to give everyone an opportunity. So that's the challenge, how you can think of something simple but something very productive for the students. Yun nga, I get it when you say don't just give lab work for the sake of giving lab work, because there should be a purpose to doing lab work, and that's what you have to think about first, right? Because if you just give lab because, lab na yung nakalagay sa schedule natin, kailangan mag-lab tayo. It defeats the purpose of doing lab, which has so much potential to it if, you really think about the kind of activity that you give to our students.
Yeah, I agree. When I first thought, it's like you should have 8 labs per quarter. Like, what? Right. So maybe we have different definitions. We start redefining what we mean by labs.
Yeah.
That's what I want, to challenge teachers. It can start from asking questions. It doesn't have to be just like doing set experiment.
Yeah.
It can be analyzing things. So if we shift our focus there, then we can do more labs, I feel, in the classroom.
There's a question here. Can you share something for grade 4?
For grade, I think I will answer first. Can you use
Yeah.
some apps using mobile phones? There are some that you can use, like for example, as long as it's YouTube, Edpuzzle you can use your gadgets. FET, I've tried it in my tablet, and I feel like if you can use it in your tablet, then you can use it in your mobile phones. FET, you have the HTML. It will be, if the internet is slow, it will load a little slow. So just 5 minutes, just wait for it and it will work. It will work. So the 3 things I've shared with you, they're all accessible using your mobile phones or gadget tablets or laptops. Next is, I'll try to share a grade 4 and 3, but remember, I'm not a teacher of grade 4 and 3. I can only share an outline of my lesson for a summer camp. Okay, so this is like I'm teaching projectile to summer camp students, and I'm doing, because it's a hands-on class, for summer students. Some actually are even English based lesson. Students are learning English through science. So it might not be patterned in the class that you have. Okay, so just know that limitations I have. Okay, can I use FET offline? You can use FET offline if you have Java in your laptop, because they have Java. That's their first one. If you have Java in your laptop, you download it and then you can use it. Okay, so you need Java in order to use it offline. Okay. So the lessons, I've shared a whole elementary lesson. You just try to fit in how it looks like for grades 3, 4, 5. I look for a grade 9 and 10 lesson. Okay, so I can show you like the spaghetti bridge lab that I have, the lesson flow that I have. And the other one, I can show you a grade 11 and 12 also. Give me time to collate. Okay, so
Yes,
I
po.
know that
Ma'am
will be,
Michelle will send it. Yeah.
yeah, in the afternoon, right? So
Yeah.
I'll try to make sure that it's available in the afternoon.
Yeah. So something for elementary and something for high school to make it simpler para everyone can use it. Okay, do we have more questions? Wala na po.
Wala
Okay.
na po, ma'am.
Okay po. Michelle, thank you very much for being very generous with your time. Maaga pa yata dyan. Are you advanced or late?
No, we're earlier. So
Earlier?
yeah. When you said 10:30, I'm like, oh no, it's 11.
Oo nga. Okay, kaya medyo na-confused. Thank you, Ma'am Michelle. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for generously sharing your experiences also in other countries in teaching science and teaching lab. Final words to our participants before we let you go.
Yeah, I believe that I have a great for science teacher, I have great heart, and I believe that we can do something. When I look at the Philippines, look at the Filipinos, I feel like we have a lot to do, but I feel like we can do something, and I entrust everything to the teachers. We can do something, and I hope that you will not be discouraged. Okay, so just take into heart, like, we want them to learn. I think that's it. But please also don't do things, don't overexert yourself. Okay. So if you feel frustrated, it's best to talk to some people. We don't want teachers to be burned out and all. We cannot solve the world, the problems of the world. We cannot solve the problems of the Philippines, but we do it slowly, little by little, by letting them think more. Okay, so that's my challenge, and also encouragement for all the science teachers in the Philippines.
Thank you, Ma'am Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you also, dear teachers, for actively participating this morning. I hope that we have learned so much from Ma'am Michelle's presentation. We have learned a lot of very easy to do experiments with materials that we can easily source, cheap materials, readily available materials from your kitchen or in your home or in your schools. I'm sure po that we can find more ideas from the examples that we got this morning. We can be inspired to think of more creative ways of doing experiments that are easy but fun for our students, but also encouraging them to think more, be critical thinkers, be keen observers, because that's what doing science is all about. Okay. Yes po, yung presentation po ni Ma'am Michelle, we will also post it just as we did with yesterday's presentation. She will also share with us some of your requests, like sample lessons for elementary and high school. So as soon as I receive it, I will also share it with you on the FB group page. So I think we're ready to answer our assessment task for this morning. So habang fresh pa po yung ating natutunan from Ma'am Michelle, pwede na natin siyang sagutan, no? Yung looking at experiments and think of your upcoming lessons maybe in the coming weeks or in the coming days, and maybe you can do a simple experiment, no, inspired by the things that we learned this morning. So, hitting two birds with one stone po yun. Sasagutan natin yung assessment task natin for this session, but also preparing for our classes in the coming weeks. So, reminder lang po, no, for this afternoon. So, by this afternoon, sana po nasagutan na natin yung ating assessment task for session 2 from Ma'am Michelle's presentation. And those of you who have not completed the session, maybe po napuputol-putol yung internet. As I announced during the orientation, there's a YouTube video of this uploaded on our FB group page. You can go back to that if you missed any part of this morning's session. So pwede nyo pong balikan doon. And then also reminder to accomplish the attendance for this morning. And also, if you're still interested to become members of i.LEAD, we have up to 5 p.m. po this afternoon to accomplish the membership link. In preparation for this afternoon synchronous session, which will be at 1:30 in the afternoon, request po ni Dr. Silva is to bring any citrus fruit. So, pwede pong kalamansi, dalandan, orange, or lime. And then, also to bring a glass container, pwede pong baso, pwedeng garapon na lalagyan ng tubig. At kasya po yung citrus fruit na gagamitin natin. So, yun po yung request niya. And also, bond paper. So, any size po, pero with a book na kasing size din po nung bond paper natin for our demonstrations and activities this afternoon. Okay, so that ends our synchronous session for this morning with Ma'am Michelle. And we will resume po our synchronous session at 1:30 in the afternoon. It's now time to move on to accomplishing our assessment task for session 2. Thank you very much, dear teachers. We'll see you again this afternoon at 1:30 p.m.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you po. We'll see you back later. Yung ating pong assessment task, hindi pa po natin isasubmit yun. Tapusin po natin hanggang session 4.